Well, in this lesson, we're going to talk about congruence transformations. Now, I guess kind of to the start, there's a little bit of vocabulary we need to work our way through. A transformation is something that can change the position, the size, or the shape of a figure or an object. And we have terms like the pre-image. Pre-image, let's say, is the original figure or object. The new figure is called the image. So pre-image is associated with the original image to what has been transformed. But in this specific lesson, we're looking at congruent transformations. Now, in a congruence transformation, the position may change, but the size and the shape of the figure are not going to change. And there are three types of congruence transformations. There are reflections, there are translations, and there are rotations. Now, reflection you may think of as a flip. It's going to flip up or down, right or left, even diagonally, but it's going to be characterized as a flip. A translation is going to be a shift, or maybe another word might be a slide, or it scoots one way or the other. And that can be vertical and that can be horizontal. It can be both, in fact, would be a translation. And a rotation is going to be a turn. Think about something spinning around an axis. It's going to turn. And there's actually going to be what is called a center of rotation. Another thing about a translation, going back to that one, is all the points are going to move the same distance in the same direction. And with a reflection, there's going to be a line of reflection. And wherever that line of reflection may be, you're going to see that the points are the same distance from that line of reflection. So we're going to we got a couple of examples here, both of which are located on page 297 there in your textbook. And this is from example 1, where we're just going to identify the congruence transformation. So let's look here at 1A. So we got two triangles, and just by visually inspecting these, it would appear to me that this is a reflection. In other words, this point has moved down to here, and this point has moved down to here, and this point has moved to here, to this location. And, you know, when we talked about a line of reflection, it would appear to me just visually looking at this one that the origin, or the x-axis, excuse me, is in fact our line of reflection. And I could kind of verify that because this point here is 1 away from the axis, and this point right here is also 1 away from the axis. And if I go up to this point here, well, that's 1, 2, 3 away from the axis, and this point down here is also 1, 2, 3 away from the axis. And then looking at this third point here, well, that's 2 from the axis, and this point is 2 away from the axis. And so we're going to say that this is a reflection. Now let's look at 1B. Well, I see that the shape and the size of the two figures, the pre-image and the image, let's call this one up top in blue, the pre-image, and green, the image. And it would appear to like this point has rotated to here, and put a different color on this, and this point is rotated to here, and this point has done just a little rotation to right there, and I can see it rotating, so this is a rotation. And now let's move to the third. Well, it looks like it's just scooted or slid right along the x-axis. So here's our y-axis, put that in that color. Here's our x-axis. And so like this point here is moved, it's 2 away from the y-axis, and now it is about 1.5 away from the y-axis. And so how many does this is moved? 1, 2, 3, 3.5. This point here is moved. That's a half. 1, 2, 3. So that point is moved 3.5. Let's see this point right here. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. This point right here. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 3.5. Everything is moved 3.5 places to the right. And this was going to be a translation, a shift. Well, I can't spell. A translation, a shift, or a slide. All right, well, let's look at a couple of other things. These are going to be kind of real world examples of where we might be able to recognize either a reflection, a rotation, or a translation. And so in this first example, we got a van here, and it's got a rear door that slides. Well, just that word slide should tell me something, because a translation is a slide. Okay, and what about the footprints in the sand? Is that a rotation? Is it a translation? Well, if it was just a translation, our big toes wouldn't be here and wouldn't be here. It'd be that the big toe would have shifted over here somewhere. So I can rule out a translation. It's not rotating because they're both kind of, the heels are down at the top, bottom, and the toes are at the top. But if I think about this being a line of reflection right here, let's say, I can then think that it has flipped across that line of reflection. And so we're going to say that this is a reflection. Hot dog, isn't this so much fun? Look around, see where you can see translations, congruence translations, slides, flips, and turns. Translations, reflections, rotations.